how many downloads of Jim and Bill It's Another Day podcast?
Today, the podcast show has fetched 400 million downloads since its start, and an average of 350,000 downloads per episode, about 3.9 million downloads per week.
Well, hello there, and welcome to the Weekend Update. I'm Jim Harrington.
And I'm Bill Knight. A weekend update wouldn't be right if we didn't start our day with Right Side Coffee, so I'm taking my first sip right now.
There's nothing like a piping hot cup of Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee. You're saying, well, I haven't seen that in the stores, Jim. I've looked around everywhere, and I can't find it. You're looking in the wrong place. What you have to do is go to rightsideshop.com, rightsideshop.com. It's really simple to remember, rightsideshop.com, and you'll find that there's other swag, as my cohort in crime here likes to call it there, hats and sweatshirts and stuff, but also you'll find that that's where we sell Jim and Bill's medium blend right side coffee and medium decaf blend right side coffee. We have high test and unleaded, in case you happen to not be somebody who partakes in the strong regular coffee. You know, you need that decaf. We got it covered. It's a delicious cup of coffee. It's perfect to start your day. It's the kind of cup that you can give your leftist friends, and before you know it, they'll be thinking clearly. They'll be thinking the right way. You know what I'm saying? Well, I don't know about that, but it's a good cup of coffee. Is there anything you want to add, sir, about right? So you just took a big swig of it as I was talking.
Oh, it's great. I was reading about Right Side Coffee, and I was reading about coffee in general, and they say because it's full of antioxidants.
You were reading about coffee?
I was reading about coffee. Wow. I really was.
You do a lot of interesting stuff.
But it's full of antioxidants, and it actually, your body produces, not without getting into the science, there's a time that your body is active and, it wants those antioxidants to kind of cleanse and purify your body. And, it's good for heart health and everything else. And that's actually a fact. That's just not me sitting there trying to do something funny.
No.
It really is good for you. And so they say in the morning hours up until around noonish, 2-3 cups is good for you. So to do that and be healthy.
Yes.
Right. Now here's where I'm getting, advertising guy.
Okay.
You need Right Side Coffee. It wouldn't be the Right Side Coffee if it wasn't the right cup of coffee to be drinking, not only for your mental well-being, but your physical health. There you go.
That's Bill Knight. We call him Mr. Science. We learned so much from this guy.
I am the Norm of radio, like he was, like Norm was
and
to,
Cheers?
what was it, Cheers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, Cliff, how's it going? How's the world treating you? Yeah. Like a baby treats a diaper. I remember. Yeah. Hey,
Cliff, whatever his last name was.
There was Cliff Clavin and Norm, and I can't remember. But that happens.
Yeah, that's about what I know, too.
We also have, and they're still here, obviously they haven't seen the fact that there are battalions of troops down on the border now putting barbed wire up, going to make it difficult for them to sneak back home if they have to. Although I think they can get a ride now, can't they? They can be put on a plane and flown back to where they're going. Anyway, we have... I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bill.
I was going to say, I understand Mexico is trying to refuse the flights in.
Well, I don't know about that, but I know they're building a massive tent cities along the border.
Yes, big tent city. And, I'm just my observation, looking forward. I've been to Mexico, when I, several times. And there are beautiful places there, but there's some real holes.
Yeah.
We'll put it that way.
Well, I don't want, before we go any further, and we have a lot to talk about today, I think it's important that we let Juan Jose and the Border Crossers sing their jingle.
Let them sing.
Because otherwise they spend the whole show crying in the corner. Guys, if you would.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
Wake up on the bright side, or the right side. It's got like 7 words in the lyrics, and I just blew it. Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee. I can't even remember the lyrics to that.
Well, you might have written a new jingle. Wake up on the bright side with Right Side. There you go.
It was intentional. Slogan. It was intentional.
Yeah, that was what it was. Well, what I was going to say about the tent city, I don't see Mexico doing a great, and I'm not saying that they can't do it, but I just don't see them taking care of their own people. And somehow, we're going to get these people there, and then somehow we're going to have to rescue them some way.
I'm still suffering from getting that lyric wrong, and I got Bugs Bunny here, so you know.
What a maroon. What an ignoramus. What a tararagoon, DA.
He knows.
Hey, you know what? Tell Bunny that I got a big pot warming up that he could jump into. I'm going to slice some carrots and some onion.
Oh,
I got some celery. Hey, Bunny. Hey,
nothing he hasn't seen Elmer do in a number of episodes.
It's a bunny sauna. Jump in.
Anyway, on a serious note, Pete Hegseth was affirmed last night as the Secretary of Defense, much to the chagrin of Murkowski, Collins, and that disgusting RINO Mitch McConnell. And, you know, it's funny. When Mitch McConnell voted against Hegseth after the vote was in, instead of going over and talking to his fellow Republicans, which you would think he would have done because he used to be the minority leader of the Senate, he, I guess, couldn't find anybody to talk to over on the right. So he went over and had a conversation with the guys on the left, the Democrats.
Have you ever noticed, though, if you do a little history on the guy, he always is talking to the left. It's almost like he was a secret weapon of the left, that he was just a wolf in sheep's clothing, just to sit there and fool us.
Well,
old Mitchie was not on our side.
Here's how the tie-breaking vote went in the Senate yesterday.
Are there any senators in the chamber who wish to vote or change a vote? If not, on this vote, the yeas are 50 and the nays are 50. The Senate being equally divided, the Vice President votes in the affirmative, and the nomination is confirmed.
And as simple as that, and the media tries to make it sound like, oh, the Vice President had to vote. Well, that's
how many times did Kamala do that?
But that's the Vice President. He's the President of the Senate, and that's his job. He has a right to do that. He could have
voted the other way, but he didn't, did he?
Well, I should also point out, by the way, that Mitch McConnell voted for Alejandro Mayorkas. He voted for Lloyd Austin. No problem with those guys. Those guys were okay because they were, tools of the deep state. But when you get an upstart like Pete Hegseth in there, and you can't sully him enough with innuendo and bad stories. And they really tried, folks. They tried to rake him over the coals, and he still happened to make it. I'm not saying he's perfect, by the way, but nobody is. And all those guys who were judging him, I'd love to see their resume, their personal life resume.
Hey, you know what? I don't know that any of this stuff is not true or true, but, anybody, I mean, the Pope could sit there and run for one of the positions, and all of a sudden, there would be young boys and young girls, and, he didn't do this in a prayer. They would have so many allegations against him because he's not on their team anymore. If you're not one of the team of the Democrats, you bad. We gonna throw everything at you that we can because that's how they roll.
Well, President Trump, he was on a tour. He went from Washington to North Carolina. He was terrific in North Carolina, by the way. I mean, he did something that Biden didn't do. And he went down there and actually walked with the people, and really he touched the debris and got firsthand stories of what they've been going through. And he had solutions when he was leaving. He was going to cut the red tape. He's going to get the Army Corps of Engineers in there to build the roads and get the bridges back. Because without that stuff being fixed, nothing else can be fixed. You can't get the trucks in with the building supplies. You can't get the debris out of the place. So anyway, he was down in North Carolina, and then he went off to California and did the same thing there. I mean, he was terrific. And one of the reporters had asked him about the Hegseth vote. Listen.
Are you disappointed that McConnell voted no?
I didn't even know that. No, I don't know that. I just heard that we won. Winning is what matters, right? So thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah, she said, "Are you angry that McConnell voted a no?" And he said, I didn't even hear that. No, I haven't heard that. But we won, and winning is what matters. And that's true. Winning is what we won. McConnell,
well, that's the Democrat thing. Winning is what matters. They do it at all cost. You know, and I would say we should do it. We should exercise every extent that we can to win, but not at all cost, because when you do it at all cost, that's when you start doing things that are
shady.
Not fair. Shady, and
you're right.
Not above the law. I mean, you heard about the CIA, because with all the firings and the cleanouts going on there, now comes out the paperwork that they were involved in getting Biden over the line in 2020. So it was a rigged election.
Absolutely. 100%. And now, if you don't believe that story that Bill just said, and I really believe that when you hear it from an outside source, outside of the country, a source that has its own security and intelligence people, when you hear it from them, it's probably true, because they haven't really got a dog in the fight. They're actually speaking from the facts as they've been able to determine. Vladimir Putin was asked about Trump and the Ukraine and about the 2020 election, and here's his answer through an interpreter. Listen.
I'd like to say that Russia never refused to come to contact with the United States administration, and it is through no fault of ours that the previous administration refused to communicate. I always had business-like relations with the previous U.S. president that were very business-like and pragmatic. But there was trust as well. If he had been the president, if the victory wasn't stolen from him in 2020, maybe the Ukrainian crisis that arose in 2022 would have never appeared.
Okay, so if he couldn't really make out the whole thing, because it was through an interpreter, he said that he didn't have a line of communication with Biden. There was no communication. They didn't talk. They did not talk. Think about it. For 4 years, Biden turned off the phone to Russia. We had no communication. And then he called...
Because he wanted a war with Russia.
Yes, I truly believe that. And if you don't know your enemy, you don't worry about them or feel for them. It's like he was distancing himself from his enemy because he wanted to crush them, hurt them. But Putin called the relationship he had with Trump businesslike and pragmatic and friendly. They got along. Now, if a guy has got a massive, arsenal of nuclear bombs, right? And those bombs are, God, they're aimed at us. Don't you think it's important that our leaders talk? Yeah. Have a line of communication. Talk to each other,
Which means there's probably a bigger agenda than what you and I are worried about. We're worried about self-preservation. And that means we've got to get along to,
go along to get along. Yep.
Yeah, go along to get along. And so Biden took that out of the equation, which means there is no talking. There's just fighting.
Yeah.
And, so Biden was trying to say, let's go behind the gym and I'll take care of you.
Yeah.
We would have been done. Like a French frying grease. It would have.
They
been
got hypersonic nuclear missiles now. Hypersonic.
Yeah.
That means that they can fire them in Russia, and they can be in our country in 7 seconds.
Yeah. Look, I'm not saying that they wouldn't have been toast either, but if you're both two pieces of toast, there's nothing left.
Yeah.
What good is it? Biden, took any hope of anything being resolved out. You may see a resolution coming to the Ukraine-Russian war probably in the next few weeks. And if you do, Wouldn't that be
Well,
amazing?
yeah. In Putin, he said there probably wouldn't have been a Ukraine war if Trump had been in office, because
They both sides have lost too many people.
That's
too
right.
much.
That's right. But, Trump would have sat down with both sides. See, here's the thing. Biden fueled the war engine for the Ukraine. But all Biden did was encourage pouring more money and weapons into the Ukraine. So if they got this channel of funding and supplies, why negotiate? Everybody's getting rich. Zelensky has his house in Miami Beach. He does have a house in Miami Beach. A lot of people.
Yes, he does.
So why get upset about? Why talk about negotiating? My God, why? And this is what Putin said. We probably would have been able to sit down and come to an agreement if it wasn't for the fact that all of a sudden, the United States was pouring all this stuff into the Ukraine. Now, I don't know whether you heard this or not,
Yeah,
but
I was going to go there.
yeah, he has shut off the valve for
shut
90
off
days.
funding for military aid.
Yeah, 90 days. 90 days it's shut down. It's not to say that it won't come back, but that means that they probably had to sit down and talk. They probably have to talk.
Who wants to talk? Come on.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing, isn't it? Now, mind you, we're only 4 days into Trump's administration. And by the way, Bill, the left-leaning wacko media, our media, they're already exhausted. They're already absolutely.
Oh, they're getting therapists. They're ordering psychologists because they have to have therapists.
That's Jamie Raskin. That's Congress ordering therapists. Believe it or not, honest to God, this is true, folks. Jamie Raskin, a representative, a Democrat, a lunatic, and I'm going to play a cut from him in a second. But Jake Tapper was on CNN. Listen, he's exhausted.
So, what hasn't Trump done this week? Well, he did not end Russia's war in Ukraine on day one, as he claimed he would do. He has not yet imposed new tariffs on Canada and Mexico, as he's been promising. This move could torpedo the economies of those countries, potentially the American economy by extension. Is it all a bluff? What are the tariffs going to actually be? We don't know. Some on Wall Street think so. Maybe don't place your bets just yet. After all, it's only Friday. We're only on day 4. Only on day 4. Whew. CNN's Caitlin Collins and Priscilla Alvarez.
And then it goes on. But the point is, they're tired. They're tired. 4 days. Because under Biden, he called, what do they call it? They called, he would end his day like at 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock. Sometimes he'd end his day at like 2 o'clock and go back to bed or watch some TV or, just chill out. Maybe get on to Delaware and sit on the beach.
Hell, sometimes he probably woke up and went back to sleep and just dreamed about his day.
That's true. Because he sure sounded like he did.
The next day, because I got a lot done yesterday.
I have a question for you.
Might have.
All
right.
I don't know whether you've heard this or not, and I forgot which representative has done this, but one of the representatives has put forth the possibility of amending the Constitution to allowing the president to have 3 terms in office. 3 terms in office. Which I think is interesting. They're getting nervous in Washington. The left is nervous because if Putin is right and if the election was stolen, because Trump has always said that, and Trump has always said, we have the proof. We have it all. If they prove in this term that the election was stolen, this goes back to what you and I have discussed, Bill, time and time again. If it was proven that Biden was an illegitimate president, does that mean that everything that Biden did as president has no strength, no legal force behind it? All the laws that he signed, all the executive orders, all of the pardons that he wrote up for Hunter and his family, if it's proven the guy wasn't really the president, do they have any substance? What do you think?
If everything he did
right.
was under the false flag.
Right.
Well, I've said that forever. Then that draws into question the legitimacy, the legality of it. But what do you do? Okay, so you rescind everything.
Right.
But you can't sit there. It's like you gave a loan under false pretenses. they go out and blow the money, you're not going to get it back. I mean,
but you can arrest the people who did it.
Yeah, you can arrest the people that did it. You can sit there and go back and make certain people that were given the luxury, hold them accountable. I mean, I look at the story of the Taliban because they have all that military equipment. Trump's back in there going, we're not going to give it back. It's ours. Well, you know, what I would do if I were Trump, but I'm not Trump, but I would just say, look, you're going to give it back. If you don't want to give it back, we're going to get it back one way or the other. Well, what do you mean about that? You see those fighter jets that are flying over right now? I would tell my guys to get the hell out of that equipment because we're just going to, if you don't want to give it back, we're going to scrap it.
Yep.
Right there where it's
Well, they had the audacity to say, not only are we not going to give it back, we think that you should actually give us more aid, more funding, because we're fighting a war against a branch of ISIS. So they're trying to say that we're fighting a proxy war for the Western world against ISIS, so you should give us funding. And I don't blame them for asking, because you look at the Ukraine, right? We're throwing boatloads of cash that way.
You go through it one problem at a time, because I think if we answer to them, don't capitulate to them, but be stern with them. ISIS might look at that and go, we're next in the firing line. Maybe we want to step back a little bit. So us, handling them first might be a nice signal for ISIS to say, well, maybe we need to wait and fight another day when we get another Biden in the White House.
So I was going to ask you, Bill, you mentioned earlier, and I kind of skirted over this. You said that Mexico may not allow the planes to land. Is that right?
Yeah, I saw that yesterday. They're saying they're refusing flights, and I'm going like, that's a dangerous thing for them because, the flights are,
two-way street.
Yeah, it's a two-way street. Well, you know what? Your planes can't come in either. Make sure they don't take off or they have enough fuel to get back because usually, anybody that flies, all right, you're going from A and you're going to land in B, whatever your final trip is going to be, usually that's the fuel you got. You got maybe an extra 15, 45 minutes of fuel, and that's it. And you're done, so you can't make the return trip unless you land, service the plane.
Yeah.
It's like driving your car. Well, I'm going to drive from Pittsburgh to Boston. Well, I may have to stop for gas on the way. My car would make it, but, I couldn't come back until I got gas,
The planes that they've flown out of Texas recently, carrying these illegals, and I use the word accurately now because it's the word, it's the right word. They are illegals. They're flying them to Guatemala. So right now the issue of landing in Mexico isn't a problem. So they're flying the planes to Guatemala. But you're right. Mexico out of one mouth to say, "Oh, you can't land your planes in our country," but they're building these massive tent cities where they're going to house these illegals. And the United States may say, "Hey, look at not a problem. We're not going to fly the illegals into Mexico anyway. We're just going to drive them across the border and drop them on your doorstep." Mexico's going to probably say, well, we'd like you to drop them in Mexico City. We'd like them to drop you here, drop them there, kind of spread them out so that we have an even distribution of these. No.
We can absorb it. Do our job for us.
Yeah. What we're going to do, if they give us a hard time, I'm sure, it's just literally bring them across the Tijuana border and say, you stay there. You're done. This is where you are. You're Mexico's problem now. As it stands right now, I get the impression, Bill, that now not the illegals per se. The illegals were in shackles when they were getting on the plane. But I got a feeling when they start bringing just the other illegals back to their home country, they're going to be accommodating. They won't be walking through a desert to get home and doing a 2,000-mile journey across Mexico. They will probably get on an airplane and fly them back to El Salvador or wherever they're from, drop them off, and who knows, maybe even give them a stipend to get on their feet, which is more than other countries would do.
Look, I would be willing to go this distance and say, look, it's not about you not wanting to be a part of the country. It's about you not being properly vetted and going through the proper procedures.
Yeah.
When we take them back, say, look, you got to go back to the beginning. How many times have you had a form that you had to fill out? Didn't do it right, sir, so we're sending you a new form. You got to start all over again. All we do is sit there and say, look, you've got to go home. This is not your home. If you want it to be your home, well, number one, we have to vet you.
Right.
You and you and you and you and you and you. Yeah, this can be your home. Here's everything you've got to do, the steps you got to go through. You, my friend, I'm sorry, but you've done all these vile things. You go home. You stay there. You made your bed.
Right.
Go back and lay in it.
Yes, and
then
you'll be greeted by some local police authorities who will have some questions to ask you, I'm sure.
That I have no problem with. If somebody wants to come in this country, be a part of this country the proper way, and be a productive citizen of this country, and uphold the values of it, well, yeah, okay. I'm cool with that.
We have listeners, by the way. I should point this out. We have listeners in Venezuela to our program. Honest to goodness. And we applaud them for their great taste and thank them very much for listening. But, Venezuela has made some rumblings. We're not taking back our prisoners. They unloaded their jails. They unloaded their prisoners, their bad guys. I'm talking about murderers.
Those are the ones that go back and can't come back because, I remember stories back when I was a kid growing up where somebody was just so vile, they would get kicked out of their country and we would go, you can't come here. And this person would end up being a man without a country or a woman without a country because they were so bad. What they did was so heinous. Nobody wanted them.
Well, here's the thing. They are still Venezuelan citizens, and they're not American citizens. So it truly is not our problem. If we take them to Venezuela and drop them off on the runway, it's Venezuela's problem. And I think that they'll take care of it. They had these guys in jails and in institutions before they decided to empty them, so they'll put them back where they came from, I guess.
Well, the problem is, and the reason they wanted to empty their jails, and I don't know why we'd want them because they'd end up in jail. You look at the cost, of housing a criminal.
Yeah.
And you're saying, this guy is a criminal that can't be rehabilitated. Let's throw him in the hoosegow, but he's going to be there for life. Well, there's maintenance. There's people there, to run that facility. They got to eat. There's everything.
Yeah.
And they're not really contributing anything for that cost. You and I pay for this. The prison system, they're different.
They're going to have to deal with it whatever way they're going to have to deal with it. I mean, if they take them out in the jungle and put them in teepees, that's their because it's their prisoners. Here's what we know as a matter of fact, and you won't hear the mainstream media say this. They are citizens of the countries they came from. They are not citizens of the United States of America. Now, I'm not being cruel and harsh. They were being dealt with humanely in their own countries. It was their own countries that decided, hey, we can save some money and get these troublemakers out of here. Just dump them in the U.S., that by itself was aiding and abetting a crime. They shouldn't have done that, and they know they shouldn't have. And by the way, now that they have a new sheriff in town in the United States, they better watch their steps because even our quote enemies in the region, like Venezuela, they're not really enemies, but they haven't got a great diplomatic relationship with the U.S. But we still buy billions of dollars of oil from Venezuela. A large part of their failing economy comes from the oil they sell to the U.S., and it's a lousy grade oil, too. I don't know whether you're aware of it. It's mud. We had to refine it and refine it again. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, I was going to say, we didn't talk about it yesterday. We'll talk about it now. Saudi Arabia, the Prince of Saudi Arabia, whatever his title is, Trump has a deal with him, and he's going to invest during the next 4 years $600 billion. Now, not only that, but apparently they've got a deal to where even though we're getting back into the oil business, the Saudi oil, they're negotiating to drop the price per barrel and bring it down.
Unbelievable. And Bill, this is not even a week into Trump's new
done
term.
more in 4 days. The rule is, and this is not from just the right, this is the left going,
yeah,
he's done more in 4 days than Reagan did in 8 years.
It's amazing. This he's on fire. It's
so
like
they're trying, and they're trying to set him on fire. The Democrats are writing impeachment papers again.
Yeah.
And what did he do now? Nothing. They're trying to go back to the old thing, January 6th. Well, now the CIA being involved in helping Joe. Well, now, okay, how deep does that river?
Well, and who's going to be in charge of the new January 6th committee? It's going to be the Republicans. It'll be fair this time. Jamie Raskin, do you remember Jamie Raskin? That wacko on the left. He is.
Yeah.
He had a group therapy session. They went out to a confab somewhere with a lot of fellow Democrats, and they had psychologists there to deal with the stress of having lost the election. Apparently, a lot of the Democrats are having hard times dealing with it. Jamie Raskin said that we were going to be in civil war conditions if Trump gets into office. We are going to be in civil war conditions. We're going to be fighting on the street. It was like the guy was. It was like he went to see a bad movie, right? And he was telling you the plot. And I was thinking, this guy is a representative. This guy
He's telegraphing what he wants to happen.
Yeah, he thinks that because of Trump, that any time now we're going to be breaking windows and just causing chaos. What I cannot figure out, and I watched January 6th on television, as most of you did, is how the left has embellished everything. I see guys on Facebook, and these are nice guys, but they're not paying a hell of a lot of attention to what's going on in the world because they're on the left. It's kind of a passive glance every so often, and they get the facts wrong. One guy put a notice on Facebook. I won't mention any names, so if he's listening, relax. But he said, "Oh, well, they don't talk about the 5 police officers who died on January 6th." Hello. There weren't 5 police officers who died on January 6th. There was, I guess, 1 or 2 of them who, in subsequent days, committed suicide. We had another guy the next day had a heart attack. Now, even his family said, well, he didn't die as a result of any activity. And there's video of that cop walking around the Capitol smiling and laughing with his fellow workers. So they're trying to sell you a narrative that isn't true. It is not true. The only people who died were that young woman, Boylan, in the tunnel out front, who was literally beaten to death by Capitol Police, beaten to death. They don't talk much about her, but she was killed. And there was no rhyme nor reason to it. And then that poor Ashley Babbitt, by the way, a woman of, 13 years in the U.S. Air Force or 11 years in the U.S. Air Force, a veteran who believed in God, country, and the American way. And this lady she's standing on the other side of a door. She hasn't pulled the door open, hasn't climbed through the glass like they're trying to tell you. And you have this lieutenant, Capitol Hill lieutenant, take out his revolver, his 9mm, and shoot her in the neck and kill her. And then he goes on television.
For no good reason.
No. And then he goes on television, Bill, with Lester Holt, and he said, essentially, do it again. Yeah, it had to be done. No, it didn't have to be done. You, sir, are a ruthless killer, You, sir...
It's how they manipulate the story and show the evidence. And I was going to say, I always said, it's probably the fact that we're in media. We shouldn't be doing this kind of stuff. But this is where we shine because we grew up in an age of radio and TV where we talked about smoke and mirrors. It wasn't, exactly, it was the story that we could build and build in your imagination. And that's what news has become, creative storytelling with a targeted message.
Yeah.
That we can take anything and alter the outcome.
Yes.
Whether it's through sound or video, audio, video. It's a magical concoction of deception. And that's what it is. They're taking the news and twisting it with you. They're not giving it to you.
When you say that,
raw and straightforward.
When you say that, Bill, I think of Kamala Harris and the 60 Minutes interview. If you heard the actual clip, the answer that she really gave to one of the interviewers on 60 Minutes, it was a hodgepodge of nonsense and confusion. But they didn't like it at 60 Minutes, so the producer said, we can make her sound smarter. Let's cut this, and this out and add this from another answer, and she'll look a heck of a lot smarter. And they did.
Case in point, for my media friends that are really lefties going, well, all this stuff. And I'm going like, go back. Take a trip back in time.
Yes.
To Orson Welles days. And the War of the Worlds, it was a skit. It was a parody, but it went on national radio, and people heard this produced thing, where, the Martians were coming in and flying saucers, and they had these beams, and they were taking over Washington and all of that stuff.
New Jersey. They landed.
New Jersey, whatever it was, they were just destroying everything. It was a joke, and it was a joke that scared the hell out of everybody. But it was all fake and pretend because sound effects, a script, and all of a sudden.
It's interesting. A lot of people are saying it's interesting. The War of the Worlds, it took place with the aliens, the UFOs landing in New Jersey. And what just happened in December and November? We had all of those things flying around New Jersey.
Yeah. But are they aliens or is it something else? But Orson Welles taught us something. You can't trust the media.
That's true, because the media can make anything look like anything.
And remember that. Anytime you hear a story and you go, oh, that's terrible, take a step back, take a breath, and go, I've got to look at both sides of this and draw my own conclusion. You, sir, shut up. Let me figure it out for myself.
The people in the media have known this for years, folks, and I'll tell you why. Let's go back even into the days of the 30s and the 40s in motion pictures. People say, oh, that actor is so good. He does such a great job with that part. Well, sometimes what you don't know is a certain scene that you like in a movie may have been shot 50 times. I'm serious. 50 times.
To get it right.
Yeah, the guy may have stumbled, may have burped, he may have done, he may have giggled, he may have sounded like a numbskull, whatever may have happened. That's how, and then the director says, okay, we'll fix it in the edit. We'll fix it in the edit means they go back to the edit room where they have all their, slicing and dicing equipment, and they take all the bad stuff out, and they put all of the good stuff together. And they match it so it looks like it's one continuous flowing piece. Like Bill said, that goes back to the 30s and the 40s. Heck, that goes back to the beginning of motion pictures, actually. It goes back to the silence. So now it's only easier. With computers, my God, they can. Do you know that a lot of people don't realize this because they don't have to. They don't pay attention. But a lot of the stuff that you see on television and in the films, it's not real. I mean, you will see an action hero jump off a building and glide to the street below 30 stories. And you say, how do they do that? It's because he's not doing it. Simply, he's not, they're not morons. It's all done in a computer. Go ahead, Bill. You want to say?
Matt Dillon.
Yeah.
James Arnaz.
Yep.
Gunsmoke. Everyone said, oh, man. And, they stood tall and he was the sheriff, and or was it Marshall? Whatever he was. Either way.
Marshall Dillon. Marshall Matt
Dillon.
Yeah. Yep.
He had war injuries in his feet. He couldn't really stand and do a lot of stuff, or he couldn't be on his feet a long time. He could ride a horse, but he couldn't be on a horse a long time. And the guy had a hard time if you gave him 2 lines, because usually when you shoot a film, you're only doing 1 or 2 lines. How do they memorize all that stuff? It's just 1 line, friends, and then they cut. All right, let's take it from a different angle.
Yeah.
They had to give him his lines all the time. He couldn't remember anything.
Well, do you know who was that way? Marlon Brando.
Yeah.
Marlon Brando used to, when Apocalypse Now, right? Marlon Brando. Yeah. They had an earpiece in his off-camera ear. So if he was talking to at a slight angle, you couldn't see his right ear. He had an earpiece in it, and the script people would be saying the lines to him, and he would then just, dramatize the lines. He'd hear it and dramatize it.
Yeah, and that's what he was good for. I'm not saying he was a bad actor, but I'm saying the real talent was the guy whispering in his ear.
Yeah, right.
Which you saw it with Biden. They got caught with that.
Yeah,
you
that's
saw
true.
it with Kamala. They got caught with that.
Yeah.
So think about it before you sit there and take all the, they're sitting there with a basket of tomatoes. Here, have one. Throw it at Trump. Come on, we're throwing tomatoes. Why are they doing this? What are they doing? It's all smoke and mirrors.
And do you know why? Do you know who knows this better than anybody? Trump. And you're going to say, what do you mean? Well, think about it for a second. In the past 4 days, he's gone all over the place. You heard Jake Tapper exhausted, and he's going to continue doing this for his whole, because what he realizes is if he doesn't give them a chance to think about it, they haven't got a chance to criticize it. So he's just going to keep them off their feet, off their balance, and keep going with new executive orders, with new rulings, with a lot more trips. By the way, it was interesting. Did you know that the First Lady went on the trip with President Trump this time? Melania was there with him on the trip, and she looked terrific. And it was nice to see her there. It was like they were a team. No more of this separate stuff,
No, she's with him all the way. Now, it's funny because the Democrats are afraid of her, and I'll tell you why, or how I know this. Trump introduced that new trading, the Trump coin, the Bitcoin, before he got into the White House. But either way, he introduced that. Well, Melania did one too, and it's doing quite well. Billions of dollars have been sold in it, or so. If you ask Elizabeth Warren, there have been billions of dollars generated. I don't think it's been that much, but it is making money. And this has got to be investigated. So now they're not only going after Donald, they're going after Melania, saying that they're a criminal family. So they're taking the Biden criminality of the family and trying to put that mask on them. And you know what? Maybe Elizabeth needs to be investigated.
Well, that's true. But, the thing is, I think you're going to see that the closer he gets to the truth, the harder the left is going to fight back. They are desperate. Nothing's worse than a cornered rat. If an
badger, anything in the corner, it's going to...
Awful. They realize they're desperate and they got to fight back, and that's what's happening now.
Yeah. And they're going to fight. And don't believe everything you hear. As a matter of fact, don't believe anything you hear. Even if it's really, really good, take a good look at it. If it's really, really bad, take a really good look at it. And you might find, somewhere in the middle of all that is the real truth. And the real truth is not what the Democrats are trying to tell you.
Right. Speaking of things that are changing, Trump, he's looking at potentially dismantling FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency.
Fix it or get rid of it.
Yep, here's what he said.
I'll also be signing an executive order to begin the process of fundamentally reforming and overhauling FEMA, or maybe getting rid of FEMA. I think, frankly, FEMA is not good. I think when you have a problem like this, I think you want to go and whether it's a Democrat or Republican governor, you want to use your state to fix it and not waste time calling FEMA. And then FEMA gets here and they don't know the area. They've never been to the area, and they want to give you rules that you've never heard about. They want to bring people that aren't as good as the people you already have. And FEMA's turned out to be a disaster. And you could go back a long way. You could go back to Louisiana. You could go back to some of the things that took place in Texas. It turns out to be the state that ends up doing the work. It just complicates it. I think we're going to recommend that FEMA go away, and we pay directly. We pay a percentage to the state, but the state should fix this. If the state did this from the beginning, it would have been a lot better situation. I think you guys agree with that, right?
On first blush, people will go, oh, getting rid of FEMA, is that a good idea? Because most of us thought when FEMA was created that it was going to be a streamlined, fast-moving or division of the government that's going to have like rapid deployment to emergency areas where they will have all the answers, put things in place, help people out. what it's become is another bumbling, cumbersome, slow, ineffective department with a lot of money. And what Trump is saying, look, it's not working. It's not working out. All they do is, I mean, you hear people yesterday when he was down in North Carolina, people got up to the microphone and they were saying, you know, we asked for a little bit of help from FEMA and they hand us forms and more forms. And if the forms aren't filled out right, we got to go back and fill the forms out. You know, they want us to fix the bridge before they give us money to fix our houses. Well, that's not our job. We don't know how to do that. And by the way, some of the locals, I've read this, some of the locals have said, I'll fix the bridge. I'll get some stuff and we'll get the bridge up. And FEMA has said, no, you can't do that because you have certain requirements to build these bridges and you don't have the skills to do that. Now, mind you, historically in these areas, the bridges were made by the locals. You know, they would go out and get some boulders from the farms and put some timber out there. And before you know it, they had a bridge. And the government had nothing to do with it. Now the government is sticking their nose into everything. What Trump is saying, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the states, the money that we would give FEMA, we'll dole that out directly to the states. The states know the property, they know the land, and the local people, they know the people to contact to get things done.
You know, you want to drive down a government road and see how effective it is, come to Pennsylvania. You know, because the rule of number one, we got to take bids for this. Oh, we're going to take the lowest bidder. The lowest bidder wins. Usually it's a family project. And, of course, it's a politician that's been in forever because he gets a kickback. Yeah. And, you drive down the road and say, oh, this is a beautiful road. First rain comes along. Where did all these potholes come from? The road is a wreck again. I mean, I got a state highway right by me. It has been redone in the past 5 years, 3 times.
Are they ever going to fix the PA Turnpike? I mean, will the PA Turnpike ever be totally finished? No. I've been driving the PA Turnpike for 40 years, and they're always doing construction on it.
Let me ask you a question, okay? You pay taxes that pays for the PA Turnpike. They collect tolls that pays for the maintenance and construction of the turnpike. And what you get is a pothole driveway all the way from,
I like that. A pothole driveway, yes.
Yeah,
that's all you
it's
get.
Just all the way. I mean, you can't
a state-funded pothole driveway, yes.
Yeah, and so technically, if I'm paying for it, when I'm on it, it's a private road. So what the hell is the state police doing on there giving me a ticket? But,
when I got a job in Pittsburgh a long time ago, I was living in upstate New York, and I'll never forget this. I got in my car. I said goodbye to my family because I was going down to stay like a few weeks alone until we had a place to stay and I could bring the family down. So I remember getting in the car, and I'm driving the New York Thruway, and it's smooth as glass. Beautiful road. I got on I-90 in New York, and I'm driving by the lake, and it was springtime, so it wasn't covered with snow and a treacherous road to drive on. It was actually kind of nice. Then I got to about Erie, Pennsylvania, and I got into the PA area, and I'll never forget. It was like all of a sudden, it was like I drove off the road. The highway, I-79 between Erie and Pittsburgh, it was potholes. It was potholes after The road was terrible. I can remember thinking, this is going to ruin my car. And I come to find out after I took the job at the radio station that I was going to work in, that it was actually kind of a running joke. PA roads, yeah, they're always repairing them, or they're always that's PA maintenance for you. It was and they haven't improved. They're still fixing the roads in PA. It's like there was a James Michael Curley was mayor of Boston, Massachusetts during the Depression, and his answer to full employment for the people of Boston was he would have sidewalks built in the Boston Common. All over the Boston Common you found sidewalks. And then when they were finished making the sidewalks, he would have them tear up the sidewalks in the Boston Common. Tear them all up, the same people. And then when they were finished tearing up the sidewalks, he'd have them put more sidewalks back. He kept them in that cycle of employment. Never mind never mind that they were wasting government funds. He just decided it was more important to keep his constituents employed. And maybe that's Go ahead, Bill.
I was going to say that, talk about it was almost like they were family jobs. Dad worked there. My granddad worked there.
That's true.
They got me a job there now. And, so, it's a family business to work for the road projects. And, you don't do a good job. But they always say, well, the excuse I always heard was, it's the weather. In Pennsylvania, it's worse than anywhere else. Although you can cross the state line to Ohio, well, why are their roads so beautiful? And they stay that way.
Yeah. Bill,
what's the diff?
It don't make no sense to somebody looking from the sidelines. Hey,
no, it don't.
This is interesting. I didn't hear this in the mainstream media. As a matter of fact, if I had the cricket sound effects and I don't have it, I play it right here because the mainstream media was quiet about this. President Trump's Department of Justice has directed all 93 U.S. attorneys' offices to prosecute state or local officials who obstruct immigration raids. Attention, Mayor Johnson and Governor Pritzker in Illinois. This bud's for you. Also, Gavin Newsom out in California. A little heads up for you guys. That's from that was sort of under the wire. Media doesn't want to point that out. Maura Healey, when she was interviewed in November, Maura Healey is the governor of Massachusetts, right? So she was standing firm. She was not going to help Trump out with any kind of immigration raids. Listen.
If the Trump administration requests it, would the Massachusetts State Police assist in mass deportations?
No, absolutely not. But, let me say this. I do think it's important that we all recognize that there's going to be a lot of pressure on states and state officials. And I can assure you, we're going to work really hard to deliver. Some realities also need to be, noted. And that is, in 2016, we had a very different situation in the courts. And while I'm sure there may be litigation ahead, there's a lot of other ways that people are going to act and need to act for the sake of their states and their residents. There's regulatory authority and executive powers and the like. There's legislation also within our states. So I think that the key here is that, every tool in the toolbox has got to be used to protect our citizens, to protect our residents, and protect our states, and certainly to hold the line on democracy and the rule of law.
What a fathead. I got to tell you, she's a piece of work. But anyway, she said that in November. So where were the first raids performed by ICE this week were in Boston. And they asked Maura Healey about it. And she said, well, I wouldn't describe them as raids. What it seems to be and what we expected and what I support, which is the apprehension of criminals in our community. But they're not raids. It's semantics with this woman. But she's completely changed her tune, if you know what I mean. Now she supports it, but they're not raids. It's not a raid. My God.
Democrats are great for linguistics, the words, a war of words, and what it means today will mean something totally different tomorrow.
Yes,
it's whatever suits their narrative.
Yes. Well, it'll be interesting to see. Now she's cooperative. Now they're getting these bad people, the bad element. And I think that what's really great is the Department of Justice now has been issued their orders. The U.S. attorneys, you have a problem with a local official, a state official in your community, arrest them. You just arrest them, okay, and we'll deal with it. You take them and you put them in custody, and we'll deal with it later on. That's what the thing is. This guy Pritzker, you see him out there yesterday, Bill, with Johnson, and defiant. Oh, they by the way, they don't call the people that they're supposed to be taking care of. They call them residents of our community, not citizens of our community. Now everybody's lumped in together, residents. That's BS, folks. That's nonsense. You're charged with taking care of the citizens of your community, the people who are taxpayers, not anybody who shows up at your door.
Yeah, and maybe they're taking the word community. It's our community. A little bit too close to, they're holding it too close to the vest, like it's something they own. It's theirs and theirs solely.
Yeah.
It's not. It's where you live, and you have certain say about things where you live. But it's not all yours. It's all part of this big thing we call the United States.
You see where this week now we have Kash Patel. His vote will come up, they think. And also, I think Kristi Noem. I'm not sure.
Kristi has, I think, cleared the hurdles, so hers is ready to go through.
Yeah, hers. I guess there's the hearing process is over, and I guess now she's waiting for a vote. That could happen this weekend, I think.
Could happen today, but now with that, is it going to be another one like Hegseth, where
good question, but they seem to think no. They think that even some Democrats are going to vote for her. Also, I guess the sticklers are let's see, Kash Patel will be a stickler. It shouldn't be. He's overly qualified, and you would think the Democrats would be sensitive to attacking a minority, which he is. But he's also he's also a Republican. So, I guess being a Republican trumps being a minority as far as the Democrats are concerned. They want to get everybody in place. See, the other thing is this: when all of the players are in place, then Trump can really go full force. Right now,
can you imagine when all the players are in place? If you've had more things in 4 days than Reagan did in 8 years, where we're going, I'm not going to say everything is going to be easy and perfect, but it is time to sit there and take care of business, because this apple cart's been full of rotten apples for a while.
Yeah,
and you got to clean house. You got to do it and strip it down and start again, rebuild it, and
people will see. Even the most staunch leftists, if you have a friend who's a real liberal and you think, my God, will he ever understand what's going on? I do think that after a while, when they're paying attention and the proof is on the table, I think that a lot of well-meaning but not clear-thinking leftists will start to see that maybe they were thinking. They were trusting the wrong people. Let's put it that way. I mean, Bill, I think back when I was a young man, I was a Democrat. I grew up in a Democratic family, and I just figured I'd be voting Democrat. It was like a religion,
Right.
And
how hard was it for you to make that transformation?
After I was introduced to Ronald Reagan, it happened in about 15 minutes. I thought, wait a second. Wait. I think I'm wrong. And then I realized Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, there's no comparison.
That's interesting. Ronald Reagan came along, and he came along with good ideas, but not everything was perfect, but he came along. And he followed up a Jimmy Carter. So even though the 2020 was stolen from Trump, that could have been the best thing in the world, because then you let this idiot get in, and it exposed so many things, and I think the worst is yet to come of what really was going on and in there, that Trump, they gave him, it gave him the open door to come in and say, now you see what we're dealing with, and if you don't, you will. We're going to clean this up.
I would agree with you, with the exception that so many young people died of like fentanyl poisoning and stuff. As a result of this administration.
Did you see the fentanyl coming with Biden?
Did I see it coming with Biden?
Back in 2020, back in 2019, campaigning, I mean, fentanyl was around, but did you see it the way it was?
No. Well, I think that, you open the door and you wave people in, and then
did anybody see what he was going to do coming? Probably not.
Oh,
no,
I think I think there are people on the right who realize that if you open our door, the cartels are going to take advantage, and there will be crisis situations.
Yeah, but I think most people. But there were a lot of Democrats that said, no, we got to have a strong border, and we need the wall. They picked on the wall because they thought it was something they could pick on.
You know who actually said that at one point? Hillary Clinton believed in a strong wall back in 2006. Barack Obama talked of a strong border in 2008 or something like that.
Yeah, but the Clintons both did. Barack did. Everybody really did. And then all of a sudden, they made it a deal because Trump said, I'm going to build a wall. And, basically he was just, dotting the I's and crossing the T's.
Now, what have we
Democrats didn't want that.
What have we not seen? We have not seen Trump talk about the Epstein case and opening those files up. But I do think that's going to happen. But I think he's saving that. He's probably saving it for the time that his attorney general is in place, and he can do it then. Right now, he has obstacles in his way. So, and by the way, there are people embedded in government even right now, Bill, who are troublemakers, who are working to obstruct his efforts. Do you know?
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Well, I was going to say the files in the Kennedys and Martin Luther King. When do you think, now that he's opened those up, when are we going to see the first?
I haven't got a lot of hope built up because they've had, for Kennedy, for example, they've had 60 years to
hide it, bury it,
take things out, change wording, lose stuff. I told you yesterday how they lost Kennedy's brain. So I don't expect to get much out of Kennedy. I think the other two, I don't know. I just think that if there's something that's going to damage somebody in government, they'll have a sneaky way of getting rid of it.
Oh, yeah, and then they'll say, see, there was nothing here.
Right.
But, and the punchline for Kennedy, them losing Kennedy's brain, well, Biden lost his mind, too, and they don't know where that is.
That's true. Good point. Hey, listen, I should point out that you still can go to our website any time of the day or night. I'm talking, the show doesn't have to be on for you to do this. You can do it tonight, if you decide, I want to get some of that Jim and Bill's Right Side coffee, it's simple. Just go to rightsideshop.com, rightsideshop.com. Simple to remember. Note, and by the way, it's singular, not plural, not right side shops. There's only one Right Side Shop, rightsideshop.com, and you'll see all of our stuff in our store, the hats, the T-shirts, the mugs, the cups, everything. It's all right there, and you'll also see the decaf and the regular blend, a medium blend of Jim and Bill's Right Side coffee. Not to be confused with some other kind of Right Side coffee. This is Jim and Bill's Right Side coffee, and it's delicious. You'll like it. You'll want to tell your friends about it. You'll want to share it with your friends. You got Valentine's Day coming up. Forget the heart and candy. Oh, my God, that's so passé. What you want to give the person that you love is something that will be good for them. You're saying good for them. Well, our science expert here, Mr. Knight, will tell you one more time, what is it that makes coffee good for you in the morning, sir?
Well, it's good for your heart, for your cardiovascular, and you live longer. I mean, it's a 30% increase for the study that they did over a 10-year period. So, you talk about Valentine's, get a heart-shaped box, a big box, or wrap it in heart wrapping paper.
Yes.
And buy them a case of Right Side coffee.
I think a case would be good. Buy a case of Right Side coffee.
And you know what? I was at the store, and they talk about specialty coffees. And, you got Death Row coffee and all of this stuff there. And I'm going like, their prices are the same as ours or a lot higher. So when you look at it and you go, well, that's a lot for coffee. Unless you get generic, who knows what's in it, coffee, then, you might get some for $5, $6, $7, $8, but it is premium coffee. Yeah. And it is good stuff. And really, seriously, coffee.
You don't want to buy a package of used coffee.
No, you don't want those. The grounds are a little soggy, and you have to use twice the amount of coffee.
That's true. to make one cup.
Make a pot because it's been used once. It's like used oil for your car.
You don't want that in your car either.
No.
No, absolutely not. Anyway, and not only that, but our coffee has. The people in our marketing department has spared no expense. They've gone out and found the greatest talent, musicians from abroad, brought them across the border. I think they came across in El Paso. But anyway, they came across the border. It's Juan Jose and the Border Crossers to sing the jingle.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee. That's a snappy little tune. No. It's just
you heard the words that they spared no expense to get these guys.
That's right.
You should remember they spared no expense to hire us for this show.
That's true.
Literally.
No, actually, they went to no expense to hire us for the show.
Oh, that's
There's
it.
a difference. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We haven't quit our day job, but we are having fun and we are enjoying the show. By the way, we're in our 4th year. Can you believe that? 4th year.
So are we doing something right? Because I haven't seen the big cane come to drag me off the stage yet.
Well, we've got, they say we have 3.9 million listeners a week, which I think is absolutely amazing. People wonder, how do you get those numbers? Well, it's like squeezing Jell-O when you get numbers in the podcast business, but it's based upon the number of people who stream you from the different sites around the world. And if you look at the map of where we're being listened to, Africa, New Zealand, Australia, we have listeners in Moscow, in Europe. I mean, all over the globe, there are people listening to our show, which I think is absolutely amazing. If I could get them all to send us $1, we'd be living the life, living la vida loca, as they would say.
I was kind of upset about that at first. Well, why aren't we getting this and this and this? And then I sat there and then I was talking to people that, they do a side hustle. Some of them make a living now doing Lyft driving and Uber and stuff like that. And I'm sitting there going, well, you get a pretty good buck from that. No, I really don't. They used to, but they don't. And I'm going, well, you get the tips, right? People don't tip anymore. And so, even for shows like this.
It's the economy.
It's the economy. It's, you go, you guys got 4 million people? Wow. You must be rolling in the dough. Yeah, it's flour dough. It's in there. I'm going to have pancakes for breakfast, and that's the only dough that we're rolling in.
But the fact is, we love doing the show, and we love being a part of your life, and you give us a chance to voice our opinions on stuff, and obviously we're simpatico when you have a similar feeling about something, which is wonderful. We truly appreciate the fact that you've allowed us into your life on a daily basis. We thank you very much. Going to be an interesting week coming up, Bill. We have more people going up for a vote for their, cabinet positions. I guess President Trump is back in Washington now. He's an amazing guy. No, he's in Las Vegas. He's in Las Vegas for a rally, I believe, today. Mm-hmm. The guy just doesn't stop. He's like the ever-ready bunny. He just keeps going and going and going. He must keep the Secret Service on their toes. Did you hear, by the way, that he's nominated a new head of the Secret Service, and it's going to be the guy who is the lead Secret Service agent on his detail? Did you hear about that?
Is that the guy? I'm trying to think
the guy
of his
in
name.
Sunglasses, Bill. If you see the picture when Trump has his arm in the air.
Is that Sean Curran?
I do not know, sir. I don't know his name, sir. You may have that.
Well, I was going to say there was a bloodbath where they cleaned house in there, and it was Sean Curran that did it. And I thought, well, is that the new guy?
Well, it could be, but the guy who was running it was very political, from what I understand. And his predecessor, the lady who was the head of the Secret Service when he was shot, was really political. She was more politically. I mean, she had a bigger detail in Pittsburgh for the First Lady than for President Trump. We have a former president who's running for the presidency in Butler, PA, just down the road, and she splits the detail and sends it into Pittsburgh to cover the First Lady going to a flower show or something. It's like, you got to be kidding.
I had a problem with a lot of the stuff that they do. So, I'm going to be anxious to see how they, rebuild this department. But,
Hey, listen, we promised ourselves that we would never go long on the update shows, and what have we done? We've gone long. Yes, we have. Anything else you want to add, sir, before we wrap this thing up? I'm done.
Well, I was just going to say Sean Kieran is that guy.
Okay, good.
And he just went. He went right in and he cleaned house.
Wow. Well, it wouldn't happen if it didn't need to be done, and he's doing it.
Yeah, so he did. I've got nothing else to add. I do know that every once in a while when we do the Hasta La Vista, baby, we're out of here. It's fine on this end. You hear it fine on your end, and somewhere in between in the lines, it goes. So I'm just going to gently say, Hasta La Vista, baby. We're out of here.
This is CRN America.